And we are pleased to be joined here on Sports Spectrum by Wayne Simien. He is the character coach now with the Kansas Jayhawks, but basketball fans might remember you as a player with the Kansas Jayhawks and certainly in the NBA as well, winning a title with the Heat. Wayne, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. And it was such a long time that I played for the Jayhawks. Fans might not remember, but it's okay because we've had a lot of great players come through since then, and it's been exciting to continue to work and serve with the program.
That's what I want to talk about. And as we start here, we're taping this at the Final Four here in Minneapolis. We're at the Nations of Coaches booth, and I know that you're a character coach now with Kansas. In essence, what is that role, and what are you doing right now with the Jayhawks in that type of a situation, calling yourself a character coach?
Yeah, well, I get a chance to serve the team and the campus as a whole in ministry and mentoring capacity. And so I get a chance to help students discover faith in Christ. Maybe a student has come to the university with that already implemented in their life, and I get a chance to help strengthen them in that as well. And also, just having been a collegiate athlete, being a professional athlete, and being someone where they're going to be eventually in a life after athletics, I get a chance to help them navigate those waters from a mentoring capacity as well. And so it's great to continue to serve in that role. And I'm thankful because my life and the trajectory of my life was really transformed by someone who came and took me under their wing and did the same thing.
Share that story, because I know that you were a highly touted player when you were with Kansas, and you were that young guy with the pull of the world coming at you and trying to figure out the next steps on going to the NBA. And I know God did some pretty cool things in your life. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I think the best way I can describe it is I was a young basketball player with a lot of talent and a lot of opportunity, but unfortunately was squandering it away because of the way that I was thinking and living. And was leaving a wake of destruction in terms of relationally and not stewarding my influence, in the right way. And so I had originally come to a point where I was searching for something greater to live for than myself in basketball. And as I was wrestling internally with this, I'm thankful that I met a campus minister who came alongside me and it showed me a better way to live, a higher way to live. And basically it started out with him just asking sincere questions about my life, and then him sharing how Jesus had transformed his life. And, I'd heard a little bit about the name Jesus before and knew some holidays and was thankful for the days off of school. But as far as the person and his work and his life and his sacrifice, I didn't really know anything about that. And so it wasn't until we began to actually open up the Bible and read it for the first time that I came face to face with who he really was and the implications of that on my life, and became a Christian July 12, 2003. And everything about my life changed from the inside out, and it's continued since then, 15 years in, and now I'm excited to see that happen in other young men's life.
July 2003, so I'm doing my math here, because in 2003 I was working at ESPN Radio, and we covered the Final Four in New Orleans. That was the Carmelo Anthony Final Four. Syracuse won it all. They beat Kansas. You were on that team, but you didn't play in that Final Four because of an injury. Tell me about where you were spiritually at that point, because it sounds like that moment probably led to what happened just a few months later with your faith.
Yeah, very true. That was one of the moments that actually kind of led to me being open to the things of God. And so, on that team, that Jayhawk team that lost in the finals, earlier in the season I was a starter on that team, and I was second in points, first in rebounds. Was a projected lottery pick. And had a season-ending injury, and basically had my identity and my worth stripped from me because I was no longer able to play basketball. I remember a real low moment when the team actually made it to the Sweet 16 that year, and they traveled to Anaheim, California to play Duke and Arizona. And I was on a flight going the opposite direction to New York City to have a shoulder surgery done that they weren't even confident that was going to be fully successful. And I remember meeting up with the team in New Orleans, and after beating Marquette and then going on to play Syracuse in the Final Four or in the championship game. And, it was interesting because, history tells that, we lost that game because of free throw shooting. I think we, missed, like 15 or 16 free throws. And And of course, we lose that, and everyone turns to me and is like, "Oh, hey, you shot 82% from the free throw line, man. If you would have been there, you would have won." And I think Jim Boeheim said something in the press conference that, hey, it would have been a different game if Simien would have been playing. But I'm actually thankful because it was that turn of events that actually led me and opened my heart to being receptive to the gospel. And so now looking back, if I could have, changed anything in order to have a national championship, I really would turn that down because it's something that led to a relationship with Jesus Christ.
How did it change the way you went about playing basketball? Because you still continued to play. You got drafted in the NBA. You were with the Heat. You won a title. And yet this faith is starting to stir inside of you. And I know that's part of the reason why you didn't continue playing basketball anymore. Take us through that and trying to be a Christian in a high-profile position both at Kansas and then in the NBA.
Yeah, one of the things that my faith did in terms of transitioning my way of thinking is prior to becoming a Christian, my motive for playing was solely about me. My stats, my future, my potential, achieving my dreams. And once I became a Christian and began to look at the life of Jesus and see him model servant leadership, became no longer about what I could accomplish for my own glory, but what I could accomplish for his. And it really changed everything. And one of the things that I'm really thankful for is it established a freedom in my life where I was free from the fear of man. I was free from trying to please others. I was free from only playing for the roar of the crowd or a potential check. But I was free to play for God, and it didn't matter if I scored 30 points or 2 points. It didn't matter if I was injured or in the starting lineup. No matter what I did, I could always do it for the glory of God.
What was faith like in the NBA for you? I know it was a while ago, obviously a decade ago or so, but what was the state of faith as far as from what you saw in being around the NBA? What was that like?
Yeah, I would just say that, because it's not highlighted like a lot of, the things that seem to be deteriorating the culture of basketball, doesn't mean that they're not taking place. There are a good core group of guys in college basketball, in professional basketball, players and coaches that love the Lord, that are playing and coaching for the right reasons, that are instrumental in sharing their faith and encouraging other people to follow and to live for God. But it's just not celebrated nearly as much as some of the other things. And so I really don't want to diminish and say, hey, it's have a defeatist attitude and thinking that, oh, it's terrible and, man, there's nothing good happening. No, there are good things happening, and I'm excited to be a part of that.
So at what point in your career are you done with basketball and moving on and trying to figure out the next step? And was ministry always a part of their thoughts in terms of going in and doing more for the Lord? I know you have a ministry that you are a part of too, so take us through some of that.
Yeah, ministry wasn't always a part of the plan, at least formal ministry per se. I always knew that I wanted to share what Jesus had done in my life. But it didn't really start to take formation until when I was playing professionally. I would come back to Lawrence, to where the campus was, and while I'd be training during the summertime, I'd naturally kind of be gathering these younger guys and basically trying to mentor or disciple these young guys, just like someone did for me. And as I began to do that, I noticed a heart shift, in the sense that I became more passionate and excited about seeing guys experiencing the life and transformation that's available through Christ, as I did trying to get back to a team to play and compete or to earn a good living. And so once I felt that heart shift, I knew that was the appropriate time to transition out of professional basketball into a ministry role.
Last couple questions here. What do you think is the number one struggle with young people, college players, in their faith, the battle that they go through? You're a character coach now at Kansas, so you're working with these guys. What do you think is the number one struggle for them right now?
Yeah, I think a significant struggle that not only athletes but just a lot of people in general are facing is really an identity crisis. One of the things that the athletics offers is you get your sense of worth and identity and value from how you perform on the court. From a stat sheet, from the applause of people. And, as we know, the volatility in sports, it can lead you on an up and down roller coaster. But one of the great things that I think the gospel has to offer is that it can find and help you establish an identity in who God says you are, and not in what you can accomplish, but in what Christ accomplished for you. And when you find your identity in that, there are circumstances that can't shake it.
Final question, and we ask this to all of our guests here on the show. What are you learning from God now? What is he teaching you in the season of life that you're in right now today, Wayne Simien? What's he been teaching you?
Yeah, well, one of the most recent scripture verses that I've been considering is in 1 Chronicles 14, and it's describing David as a man who knew that God had established his kingdom and his influence, and that kingdom and influence was established for the sake of other people. And so recently I've just kind of been meditating and thinking about any leadership role, any measure of influence that I have hasn't been because of my ability or the people that I know, but it's been established because of God, and it's been established for a kingdom purpose in serving other people. And so that's something that I've been meditating on just personally, and it's something that I want to communicate to the athletes that I serve, because they do have an influence and a platform to steward.
He is Wayne Simien, character coach with the Kansas Jayhawks. Appreciate you, my friend. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.